Okay, well, let's kind of officially get started. So I am Sam Lazarus. I'm a creative director for Rokoko. And hey, William, welcome. And yeah, we're super excited to be doing these webinars. As I said a second ago, the point is just to make your guys' lives easier. Get some feedback. If you guys have some thoughts, we'd always like to hear them. And then also just show the workflows in action and kind of show you what we're doing and how we're using the tools and how you can use them most effectively. So I'm Sam. Also in the meeting here, we have Philip Kohler, who is our Blender developer guru, Blender
Yes.
master person. Yeah,
Hello.
wizard. Philip, I don't know, maybe you could just quickly, what version of Blender, or when did you, maybe, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I started working on Blender a couple of years ago. I started with 2.79,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I have created a few Blender plugins in the meantime, and I'm happy that I was able to create this one for Rokoko.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I think one of the things that we're super excited about this plugin is it kind of, the other good retargeting workflow in my experience has been with Maya, which is expensive and is great if you can have it and you have access to it. It's wonderful, but to have something that's open for everyone and works as well as this plugin works, and is reliable as, everything works perfectly in Blender. And so that's kind of one of the exciting things I think about this plugin is that this is really can be your go-to workflow for any mocap. You don't need to, again, you might not have needed Maya in the past, but now you really don't need it at all. And you can do all of this stuff in Blender. Okay, well, I am going to share my screen, and basically for this webinar, what we're going to be doing is just going through the basic retargeting workflow for our plugin, and then we're also going to show one of the kind of a fix for a problem that you might run into with some of your models, which I think is important for people to see. And then we're also going to demo the live aspect of the plugin as well. So you can either retarget your motion capture from an animation to your character, or you can stream your motion capture live. And I'm actually in a Rokoko Smart Suit right now. And so I can stream my mocap live into Blender from Rokoko Studio. And so we'll show off kind of both of those processes. And again, as I said before, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We're checking out the chat, and yeah, we just want to show off this awesome tech. So, okay, I want to share my screen now, and we're just going to get into it a little bit. And Philip, please chime in if you see anything. And so for my
Sure.
Blender, I feel like Blender is split into two types of people at this point. It's pre 2.8 and post 2.8. I am a post 2.8 person, which means I'm relatively new with Blender still. And so, there's always ways to improve workflows and stuff. So if you guys see anything that, Philip, especially if you see me doing anything that maybe you have a better way for me to do it,
Sure.
please call it out. Okay. So hopefully you guys can all see my screen properly. I just have a new Blender project here. But first of all, we're going to need mocap to actually retarget onto our character, because that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We have a character and we have mocap, and we need to get that motion capture accurately onto our character. So if you download Rokoko Studio, which is our free motion capture, it's kind of our software base. So it's the software you use to make recordings from the motion capture suite. I'm trying to see if I actually can't see the chat right now. So Philip, if there are any questions, I guess I'll be relying on you to kind of check them out.
Oh, sure.
Here, I can get the chat open actually. I'm up here maybe. So if you download Rokoko Studio, we have a sample project in Rokoko Studio. So as soon as you open it up, you can just go to sample project, and we have all this mocap that we've already recorded. And some of this mocap includes facial mocap, which is what we want to show off as well today. And so this is a animation of Mike Foster, one of our field engineers, one of our awesome kind of mocap experts, recorded this one, and it's available in the project for free, and it has facial capture. So we're just scrubbing through it here, and I'm just going to export this out for use in Blender. So when I'm working in Blender, I always use a binary FBX because I've run into issues with non-binary FBXs. So whenever I'm exporting out of Rokoko Studio, I will export an FBX that is in binary, and frame rate is up to you. I'm going to leave it at 30, and you can also use a BVH, Philip, I believe. But I always tend to stick with FBX because I find that that's the standard and that's what everyone is using. It's what I'm using in most of my day-to-day work.
Yeah, sure,
So
but BVH is possible, definitely.
Yeah, maybe you can talk about the difference, or why would you use BVH instead? I know, isn't BVH used more?
Well, BVH is especially created for motion capture, so it doesn't include shape keys as far as I know. It just includes the animation for armatures, rigs.
Okay.
So
especially when you're exporting out facial data, you always want to use an FBX because otherwise the shape keys won't be exported for the face. Is my assumption there. So I'm going to basically use an FBX in binary when you're exporting out of Rokoko Studio. And this workflow can work for Mixamo and other other mocap that you have. I think one of the best things about like the motion library, some of our products, is that it's hardware agnostic. So it doesn't actually matter. We have mocap on the motion library, which is our motion capture marketplace, which can also be accessed from Rokoko Studio. So this is kind of an alternative to Mixamo with really high quality animations and animations that you kind of haven't seen a million times, which I think, we're starting to see some Mixamo fatigue because everyone's kind of seen the same dances over and over again. So, but some of these were not recorded with Rokoko. And also this Blender workflow will work for mocap that isn't, exported out of Rokoko Studio. It'll work for any mocap that you have. So I've exported out my mocap. And I'm going to import a character first. And for this demo, I'm going to use a character that is actually from the Daz marketplace. And we did a tutorial on how to convert the blend shapes on a Daz characters so that you can use facial capture on them. And so that's the character that I'm going to be using today, this little alien guy. And we're going to use him, and we're not going to texture him because we want to keep everything moving fast. So here's our character. I'm just going to move him over to the side a little bit. And now we're going to import our mocap. So import that love mocap. And so when you export mocap from Rokoko Studio with facial capture, it will export as the body and the face separately, which is good because sometimes you don't want them to be combined. You want them to be separate because maybe there could be a lot of reasons for that, but they will export separately. So here's the face, or here's the body mocap. If I hit play, you can see it all working. I'll extend out the timeline a little bit. And now I will import the facial capture. And so every time I import an FBX into Blender, again, some of you probably know this, I'm sure I didn't, but I always want to check automatic bone orientation. Philip, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe this has an actual effect on anything, but
no, it doesn't have an effect.
Yeah, but the bones will look very odd, and it kind of is confusing to me if I don't have this checked. So I always check this. Yeah.
Checking this is a good idea. It makes the bones straight.
Okay.
Which is much nicer to work with.
Right. Yeah. And it just kind of looks like it makes more sense to me too, which is always good. And then also you want animation checked if you want that animation, which we do. So I'm going to import my face, import. And there we go. So if I hit play, you can see that we now have our body and our face mocap successfully imported into Blender. So if we want to transfer this over to our character, it's super easy. You can find the Rokoko plugin up here in this little tab right here under Rokoko. And, if you go to rokoko.com, you can find links to download the plugin itself. You can install the plugin like you would any Blender plugin, you know, edit, preferences, add-ons, and you would just install the zip. And once I do, you can see that I have it enabled. And once you enable it, you know, you'll have access to the plugin and it will pop up right here. And so in this plugin right here, we have our retargeting panel. And so retargeting this mocap is actually super easy. For source, this is going to be the animation that we're using. So in our case, this is going to be our mocap right here. So it's root. And I could have gone in and renamed these. In fact, let's do that. Let's call this mocap. Let's call this alien, just to keep things a little bit cleaner. So now I can go in mocap, and target is going to be alien. That is where we're transferring the mocap. You know, that's the character we're transferring it to. And now we'll hit build bone list. And so this is kind of the secret sauce that makes everything work. The way that, you know, mocap retargeting works is that you're essentially trying to take, you know, rotation and positional data from your bones and transfer them to, you know, your character's bones, which can get really messy because it's just hard to link up the bones properly and it can just get difficult. So the whole, you know, the thing that makes mocap retargeting work is kind of being able to match up the corresponding bones between your character and your animation. And once you've done that, you can copy the animation over. So this rebuild bone list, this is amazing because it will do that process for you pretty much automatically. And if it doesn't populate, it's easy to kind of go in and yourself go in and add the corresponding bone. So let's say, you know, either these two didn't populate for some reason or nothing populated. I would just spend 60 seconds. I'd go in, this is hips, you know, it connects to hips. Left thigh will connect to, let's go find it. I believe it's left up leg for Mixamo, so thigh. Left shin would be left leg. So you can go in and do this manually as well, and it's really easy. And once you've done all of that, basically all we're going to do is click Retarget Animation. We have this option here, Auto Scale, which will scale your animation to your character to make it all work a little bit better. And then I will also retarget using the rest pose right now. So if I click my character and I want to see the rest pose for my character, I can click the mesh and hit 1, and that will take me to edit mode, and it will show me the rest pose, which is basically the pose the character would be in if it didn't have joints. If I deleted all my joints right now, what would my character look like? Would it still be in T-pose? This character would still be in T-pose. Again, I can click my character and hit 1 and 4 and toggle back between edit mode and object mode, and that will show me what the resting pose of my geometry is. So again, resting pose is fine. We want these two poses to be matching. And now we'll hit retarget animation. And that was a lot of talking that I kind of just did, but you know, when I'm doing this and I'm not talking, it takes, you know, it's just a few clicks. It's so quick and easy every time. And that's what we, you know, are really loving about this plugin and are hoping that people are digging as well. So there we go. So now if I hit play, it just copied all that information over to my character's bones. And again, it's if you've worked with mocap, and I'm sure a lot of you have played around with it in the past, you know how difficult this can be. And so the fact that this is this easy has been, you know, I think it's a really big deal, not only for Blender people, but for kind of all the CG communities that have a really difficult time doing this retargeting. Which classically has given me a nightmare, and now you know, is really easy. So that's how you retarget body mocap, and now what we want to do is how do we go in and actually get these shape keys onto our character. And so this is a process that doesn't actually involve the our plugin, but is still useful, I think, for people who want to, you know, we offer facial capture. So how do I use that facial capture in Blender? And this is the workflow that I've been using to do it. And so the thing I think to mention, first of all, is just in order to use Rokoko motion capture, facial motion capture, you're going to need a character that is rigged with the blend shapes from the Apple AR kit. That's kind of the foundation of what we use for our facial motion capture, like a lot of other facial motion capture. And it basically revolves around having 52 blend shapes on the face that are named in these standard 52 names. And so your character needs to already have these blend shapes. And so we have a character that we're giving out for free that is rigged for facial mocap that, if you go to our Blender tutorials on YouTube, we have the links there. And I'll put the link in the chat kind of after we're done to that character. But you can use that character to receive facial mocap. And this character, I got from Daz, and we have a workflow that allows you to convert Daz characters to have the correct 52 blend shapes. And the way that you can check your mesh to see if it has those blend shapes is basically I will select my mesh, and you can see down here, if we go to my shape keys, in Blender, they're shape keys. Sometimes they're called blend shapes in other programs. But here we have all of the blend shapes for this character. And if I can, if I zoom in here, these are kind of the values that are driving all that facial animation, right? 0 to 1. And all you're doing when you're taking this data and you're copying it over is you're just copying over these values to drive this performance. So the way that I've been doing that is you will basically go to the animation layout. I'm going to click my Rokoko face. I'm going to click the actual face. And basically, you can just, when I was learning this, I was just clicking down until I was finding the keyframes. So the keyframes are located, on the shape keys on the face. And they'll pop up as soon as you find them. So I'll Control A to select all the keyframes, Control C to copy them. And now I'm just going to go to my alien. And as soon as I click on my alien here, you can see that I have these keyframes here that are ready to receive that copied data. And so I will I'm actually going to delete most of them. But then I will just paste that data. Oh, yep, there it is.
We have a question in chat.
Oh, yeah, please.
If this webinar will be available somewhere to watch later?
It will be. This webinar will be available. We're going to have it. It's all recording right now. So this will all be available to go back in and kind of see what I was doing there if I was going a little bit too fast. But as soon as I copy over the shape keys, now we have our full animation copied over, retargeted properly. And if I jump back into Rokoko here, we can just take a look at this sample project. This is what we recorded, and this is now what we have working in Blender. So that is our process for just retargeting animation, mocap animation you've already recorded onto your characters in Blender. And yeah, now would be a good time. I don't know, Philip, if you have anything to add or if there's any questions about this process. I almost kind of want to do it again without talking just to show how easy it is. Maybe I will. Philip, why don't you talk and I'm gonna redo it.
I see another question in the chat about the shape key workflow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. What is it?
You want me to read it? You mentioned in a previous tutorial that there's a potential workflow from Fuse.
There is a potential workflow from Fuse. So I have gotten it working. And it's definitely possible. And we're going to put out a workflow on it. I don't think I can get into it right now, but basically Fuse will give you blend shapes. When you're in Fuse, if you hit, is after you make a character, and Fuse, for those of you who don't know, is Adobe's. William uses Fuse too. Yeah, it's Adobe's character creator, which is great because if you have the Adobe suite, it's free. It's not really free because you're paying for it, but it's essentially free because we all have Adobe. So you can make a character in there and they will put in these same 52 blend shapes. And basically when you hit, send to Mixamo, like to rig it, there's an option on the Mixamo import screen that has import blend shapes. So you just want to make sure that's checked, and then we will put out a tutorial on how to get it all working, actually in Blender, because it's not quite the same. There's a little tweaking that you need to do, but the important part is the 52 blend shapes do come with the fuse characters, so you can use them and with our mocap, which is awesome because, again, it's essentially free character creation if you already have Adobe. So just to show that process again, just because I didn't want to go too fast, I just imported my character. Move it over. I'm going to import my mocap. Automatic bone orientation is checked. Always check it. I'm going to import my face. If we want to retarget the body mocap, we're just going to go into the Rokoko plugin, retargeting. Source is the root, that's the animation. Target is our character. Build bone list. Auto scale on, rest. Leave it at rest. Retarget animation. And as soon as we're done thinking for a second, boom. There we go. Retargeted. So I think it's important to show it, quickly, because it's amazing how quick it can be for something that is so complicated traditionally. Ben Hughes, tutorial coming soon, not tomorrow. Soon though. But yeah, it's super easy to use this process. And that's what's so amazing about it, is that you can kind of turn around these mocap retargetings really quickly. Whereas in the past, it might have been a whole nightmare to do. So now I kind of want to go through quickly. I'm going to start a new project, and I want to go through a fix for characters that aren't in a T-pose rest position. So that can be, and what that means essentially is, let's say you have a mesh that you find, and I'm going to, let me import my character for this one. I believe it's called Ape example. Go to my Blender webinar. Ape example. Automatic bone orientation. Sometimes it gets unchecked. I have no idea why. Just to make your life difficult. But so this is a character that was in an Ape pose. And if I go into edit mode, this is how I downloaded the mesh, right? What I downloaded was a mesh that was it had no bones, right? As many meshes don't. And it was in this Ape pose format. So then I sent it to Mixamo, and I rigged it up as you do, and then I downloaded the T-pose, and so this is what I downloaded. However, as you can see, if I go into edit mode, the rest position of this mesh is not actually in a T-pose, because when I rigged it on Mixamo, this was how the mesh looked. So the mesh without bones will revert back to this rest position. So if I try to retarget this, let me bring in that mocap again. And I want to show you what will happen. We're going to use this fireball. And this is actually, I think, even a different skeleton. So you can really use our retargeting on like any, it will really work with any skeleton that you have. But let's retarget this mocap really quickly. Let me hit play. Here's our mocap. Go back to frame 1. Retargeting. Source is going to be our root. Target is our armature. That's our character. Build the bone list. Everything's looking great. This is all going to work fine. The retargeting is going to be perfect. I hit retarget. And again, you want your characters to be in similar, hopefully they're both in T poses. And you can see as soon as I hit retarget, my mesh returned to its rest pose. So if I hit play, it's basically going to kind of apply this, this rotational data that's on the arms throughout the entire animation. So as you can see here, obviously this is not correct, right? This is how our characters should look, but it's not, because it's kind of got this this extra rotational data from the rest pose. So let's go back. And so this is now I'm before I retargeted the animation. And if I hit play, you can see, you know, no animation on my character. And so to fix that issue, what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to change my skeleton, my animation skeleton, to more accurately reflect the rest pose of my character. And that way it will kind of match up those starting poses, and you won't get that weird, you know, extra rotational data in the arms that is making your animations not look right. So in order to do that, I'm going to select my animation here. I'm going to go into pose mode, select these arms, E on my keyboard to bring up rotation, and I'm just going to move these arms down into an A pose. And it's, you know, I could spend more time trying to get exact. I could even download the model and like try to match it, but I know this is close enough. And so now I'll just immediately hit retarget animation. And now our character will not have those, you know, those weird arms. Oh no, we did have those weird arms. What happened? Hold on. Sorry, let me go back a second.
You'll probably need to check current, exactly.
Current, right, exactly. So I need to change this over to current. So that's the current, you know, I'm using this basically state of this animation, which is matching the A pose for my character. So point being, when you're you know, retargeting this animation on frame 1, your skeleton animation has to be in the same position. Your animation skeleton, sorry, has to be in the same position as your geometry, you know, rest pose, and current and kind of currently, you'll click current because currently you're using the current pose of this animation, not the rest pose of the animation. So now when I hit retarget animation, it should work all fine. And actually, I don't know, Philip, when you are doing this, I kind of generally will just click current.
So yeah, if the characters are in the same pose already, then you can use current.
Right. Yeah. So there we go. So that's the fix to that problem if you run into that issue, which I think is an issue that you might run into, considering that a lot of people use Mixamo to rig characters, and a lot of those characters are not in a T-pose when you rig them on Mixamo. And so you can get this issue when you're doing the retargeting, but there's this fix. Okay, so that I wanted to cover that. Does anyone have any questions? You know, generally we're gonna kind of probably shift into live streaming data now from Rokoko Studio. So if you have any retargeting questions, we can kind of look at them right now. Yeah, Ben had mentioned that the biggest bottleneck is finding avatars with the right facial blend shapes, and I agree that is the biggest bottleneck. And so yeah, we're working on getting that Fuse tutorial out so that you can, you know, the great thing about Fuse is that you can, you know, it's pretty deep in terms of character creation. You can really create a custom, like you could create, you know, a Voldemort or something in Fuse, and by manipulating all the stuff, you know, making the nose tiny and elongating the head and stuff. And it's kind of like a video game, and it goes pretty deep with being able to manipulate the shape of your character's face. So that's cool that it's free and available for everyone. Auto Rigger in Blender, is that the William is asking if anyone used the Auto Rigger? Is that the plugin Auto Rigger?
Do you mean Riggify?
Or is that like Riggify? Because Riggify should work fine. I actually haven't tested it yet, but anything. Oh, sorry, William. You said yes, but do you mean yes to the plugin or to Riggify? Riggify, yeah. Philip, I don't know. Have you tested it?
Retargeting Riggify characters does definitely work. You just have to check that the bone list is correct.
Yeah.
And that the both characters match the pose.
Yeah. So it's basically this. We've gotten a couple questions about Riggify, and this will work for like any bone structure that you have. And you could also, you can like play with, if you wanted to have a ring style, really creepy horror character, and you wanted like deforming, like incorrect retargeting as an experiment, you could totally do that. But all the plugin is doing is it's just copying the data from this bone to this bone. And it's copying the data from this bone to this bone and this bone to this bone. So you can set this list up like however you want, and it's just going to copy the data over. It's just generally, you kind of want the bones to be matching because you want an accurate retargeting. But what you could also do, and what we, Ian Hubert, who I'm sure, we all know because he's awesome, but he has been doing some stuff where he'll play with like like you can get like a dinosaur or something, as long as basically all this is doing is copying data from bones. So if you have a dinosaur or Godzilla character, and as long as you can identify which bones you want to copy your animation data onto, you can do it through here. It doesn't have to be a human even, it's just, this plugin is just copying data in a really efficient and clean way. It's not actually, preventing you from copying data. Like I can copy data from the hips to the arm if I want to. It's just you generally don't want to. So that was kind of a long answer about Riggify, but basically any skeleton you have, you can use this for retargeting.
Yes, so also a neat thing is if you have any custom names for your bones and the list doesn't get filled automatically, you can fill in the list once and then press save down below to save your custom naming scheme. And it will automatically prefer your custom naming scheme over the default one.
Yeah. So I have, sometimes it will not populate and you just have to go in and kind of manually do that. But the nice thing is you just only have to do that once, because as Philip said, you just hit save and then it will remember next time. And, you record another animation, get it onto your character, and that time it'll do it all automatically, which is really great. Cool. Okay, well, let's jump into some live streaming stuff. So yeah, the plugin, actually, I'm going to start a new project and delete these guys. And so the plugin initially just did live streaming. And so this retargeting ability is kind of new. And oh, we have a question. Sorry, from Sean. Let me answer that first. I can set up a Daz character. Yes, exactly. Yep. So any skeleton that you have, any character with a skeleton, Sean is asking about a Daz character, which have non-Mixamo skeletons. They have a different skeleton when you export them out. And same thing. You'll just, if you have to go in and manually do it, just hit save after you do it the first time, and then it will automatically generate the next time you're adding animation to that character, which is amazing. Okay, yeah, so live streaming data. So I'm sitting here in my Rokoko smart suit. I'm gonna plug in my battery because it's been off. And here we go. Looking all funky. So I'm going to do a straight pose, which will basically recalibrate, the suit. Stand up. And when you're doing those straight poses, I just stand with my feet below my hips and my arms resting gently on my legs. And so, we're live. As you can see, hopefully everything is my suit is on and connected and everything's looking good. And so if we want to stream this data out to Blender, we will go down to this live stream area. My live stream is actually already on, but here you can see all the different live integrations that we have. And so I'm going to turn on my Blender. And I always just take a peek at this port. So this is the port that we're going to do our forwarding through for for the live streaming. So I just remember 1403. You really don't have to do this. It will almost always work automatically. Like the ports will be matched up, but I like to see the port just in case, something's not working, and I can check it in Blender and make sure our ports are correct. So my live streaming is on in Rokoko Studio. I'm going to hop over to Blender, go down to my Rokoko plugin, and now we're going to use this Rokoko Studio Live area. If I hit Start Receiver, immediately you can see that it's looking good because, we have my suit popped up, the correct actor profile popped up, and if I go into Blender, C2J, as you can see, that is the name of my suit, and it's being accurately reflected here. So everything is working fine. Now let's bring in our little alien character again here. Automatic bone orientation every time. Make sure to click that. Doesn't really do anything, but it will make your life easier. Okay, and so we have our character, we're streaming live, and so now how do we get our character to be, to be driven by the data that we have in Rokoko Studio? So for live, the actual part of the plugin that you're going to use is down here. And as you can see, as soon as I click my armature, I get this option to attach an actor to my armature. And again, hopefully this is all the same, these should all be, it should be the same suit. C2J should pop up right here, which it does. I'm going to auto detect my bones. And this is doing essentially the same thing that retargeting build bone list is doing. It's just identifying the corresponding bones between the skeleton coming out of Rokoko Studio and my character, right? And then we want our character to be in a T-pose, and we will hit set as T-pose. So basically it's telling Rokoko Studio Live that our character is in a T-pose right now. So I will set it. And as soon as we do that, we will start seeing the results of our live streaming. And this is looking good, and this is streaming super fast.
One
Marcus,
thing I see. Oh yeah, okay. Here's an example where it didn't find the spine and chest bone for some reason. You might want to fill those in.
Oh yeah. So I can go back and fill those in actually. So can I do that live, Philip?
Yeah, sure. You can type in spine, and it will.
Oh right, yeah. Yes. So we have spine
like
1, and then chest is probably going to be spine 2. Or
yes,
yeah,
probably.
Spine and then spine 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there you go. So now it's actually, you can see that it is accurately getting my, it looks like the alien has abs, but I think it's not abs, judging by that gut. But yeah, so if it doesn't populate fully, then you can just go in and you just add it right here. And this process again is really easy. And you can even type in, spine, and it will populate spine instead of, going and kind of searching through all these bones. So we had a couple questions. Based on what does the auto detect recognize the bones? That is such a great question, Philip, because I don't know how it does it either. How does it do it?
Well, we pretty much have a very big database of bone names and bone naming schemes, and we just recognize them by name, pretty much.
Easy as that. And so again, I can hit this save current naming scheme, and it will recognize, it next time, right? Yeah, it will. So it's the same thing. It's safe. So worst case scenario, you'd have to do this once. Yeah, right, Marcus. It's a lot easier. It's that the auto generating of the bones is the thing that makes this all work so well. And again, Philip is amazing that he got this all to work for free, and it's just incredible. We haven't even talked about, Philip, the fact that installing this plugin actually speeds up Blender importing.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is okay, I'll finish streaming and then we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so I got my body, but now let's stream some face data too. So back into Blender, I've got an iPhone 10 here. So our facial capture data workflow works with an iPhone 10 or higher because you need the true depth sensor. We actually have a new solution that will feature Android and non-depth cameras coming out soon. So that's really exciting. Stay tuned for that news. As soon as I open up Rokoko Remote, which is the app that's available, you can find it on the App Store or at rokoko.com. But as soon as I open it up and I'm on the same Wi-Fi network as my computer in Suit, I'll get this green light up here. And it basically knows that my phone is on the network. So I'll hit connect. And as soon as I do that, well, I'll get a prompt on my phone. I'll hit accept on my phone. And then I will turn on face capture on my phone. There's a little toggle here. And as soon as I turn on face capture, boom, now we have the face in the scene. It's all the way up here because it's not connected to this body yet. So to do that, I will just drag my face into my, my actor, Sam. And here we go. So I might need to do, normally I don't record mocap surrounded by my computer equipment. So we might get a little drift or something, but as you can see, this works really smoothly, and I'm sitting down, I'm getting no drift. It's all working awesomely. So now how do we get this facial mocap onto our Blender character? Again, very similar to not so similar to what we did when we were just copying over the data. It's actually easier when you're doing it live. To get the face data onto his character, I'll select the mesh itself, not my armature, the mesh. And as soon as I do that, and you can see is if I click armature, we have this actor. If I click the mesh, face, because the face data is being applied to the geometry, not to the bones. So it's on the mesh, not on the skeleton. So as soon as I click the mesh, we get this option to add the face. Auto detect will basically just go through and it'll say all the blend shapes on this character are correct, and we recognize the names, and we're going to match the names to the blend shapes that are coming out of Rokoko Studio. So I'll hit auto detect. There we go. We're live. Big smile. Oh, and we're drifting a little bit because my feet are coming off the ground. But yeah, there we go. It's that easy. And there's a lot of different uses for this. I think one of the main ones would be kind of starting to get to know the dimensions of like your character when you're doing acting. So, I mean, my general workflow is I would not, while I could record this data to the timeline directly and I could like record a performance live in Blender, if I wanted to get the best performance, I would just record that in Rokoko Studio and then I would retarget it. This live plugin, I think, is more, useful for like more dynamic kind of interesting uses of mocap data live or previs live. And there's a lot of uses for it. But if I was like if I wanted the absolute best fidelity, I would record straight into Rokoko Studio and then I would retarget that animation to my character. I wouldn't record it live because I don't want all these programs running and it just gets messy and I might have lag. And as you can see, it's really fast. Like this is essentially instant. Again, I'm broadcasting on Zoom, so it might be slower, but even so, I would record this in Rokoko Studio and then I would transfer all the data. So we got a question here. It is Daz. Yes, we have a workflow for Daz characters and converting them to have the proper, I'm going to stop the receiver here. Stop receiver. To have the proper 52 blend shapes. And it's on our YouTube, so you can check that out. And it uses Maya, unfortunately, is the only workflow right now. But as I think Ben was saying earlier, there's a workflow from Fuse that we will be putting out a tutorial on soon that you can get those 52 blend shapes. It's hard to find models with the 52 blend shapes. That's the bottleneck, certainly. But you have Daz, you have that workflow for Daz, and you have Fuse, and we'll get that tutorial out soon. And the only other option is to kind of pay Polywink to do the rigging for you, which can be really expensive. So I think the Daz workflow and the Fuse workflows are kind of better options, especially if you don't want to, shell out $500 to rig one model, which is pretty expensive. A tentative time for the hand mocap is very, very soon. I know we keep saying that, but it is coming. I have been seeing it so much in our internal, and it looks awesome. It's going to be really great. And I think it'll be a really great solution in the industry because, you know, there's not a lot of hand mocap options out there, but ours is going to be fantastic and coming very soon. COVID has wreaked havoc. I know nobody likes to hear that, but very, very imminently, I'll say that hand mocap is coming. How do we minimize drifting? So, William, are you talking about like live or are you talking about, good. Are you talking about in recording? In recording. Okay. So, this is not going to be Blender specific, but this is kind of the reason we're doing all this is we want to just answer your guys' questions. So I'm super happy to talk about this sort of stuff. So basically the way that Rokoko mocap, our hardware works is that it kind of works off of floor collision, right? So anytime your feet are connected with the floor, you're not going to be drifting. If I lift my feet up, we get some drifting and it gets a little bit confused. And especially when you're in a chair, that can happen. But let's say I'm going to do a quick recording right here. I'm going to add my character, live scene objects. What's happening? Oh, okay. My suit's already on. So I'm going to stand up. I'm going to do a straight pose. I'm going to record. Going in and out of the camera. Okay. Stop recording. And let's sit back down here. Okay, let's open up that take that we just recorded. And so this has no drifting, really. But even if it did, let's zoom in here. This foot. Well, that slide is kind of natural, but trying to find drifting. This is too good of a recording. But basically what you can do to prevent drifting is always make sure your keyframes here. The first thing I do is I always take 30 seconds and I turn on this gizmo and I look at the foot contact. And these keyframes down here, these represent the green are your left foot and the blue are your right foot. And so if these keyframes are not accurately reflecting your animation, and what I mean by that is right here, my right foot, I can see in my animation, and from what I just did, I know that my right foot was on the ground, and Rokoko Studio knows that it was on the ground because we're in this, little blue area, and this is our right foot. In this area where there is no keyframe, my foot is off the ground, as you can see. So that's all correct. So you want to make sure that these keyframes are all right. And sometimes they won't be, and it just takes 30 seconds to go in, and make sure that it's accurately reflecting your animation. But what I do to prevent drift is I turn on Foot IK. And Foot IK is an awesome little filter that we have that will basically tell the program anytime a foot is in contact with the ground, as it knows by these keyframes, it will say, that foot is not moving anywhere. That foot is locked into place. So I turn on Foot IK, and that will prevent my feet from sliding or drifting or anything like that. In terms of drifting on the rest of the body, if you're getting drifting from magnetic interference or something, one tip that I have would be to plug, when you turn on your suit, when you put in when you plug in your battery to your suit and it actually powers on, do that in a place that is free of, in like the center of your recording area, which should be hopefully not surrounded, by a chain link fence. Magnetic interference can be a real thing. Thankfully, I don't run into it really ever, unless I'm recording mocap right next to a metal microphone, or when I record, I take my headphones off because I don't want them messing with my sensor back here. But yeah, plug your suit in away from metal, and that should help give your initial sensors, when they turn on initially, it should help with magnetic interference. Yeah, so that's that question. Yeah, totally. I'm going to, yeah, does anyone else have any questions or have any, feedback? Face capture, true depth doesn't work properly with beardy people. That is true. Oh man, that's such a good question, Ben. Ben is pointing out that true depth facial capture really only works without a beard. And will the Android version resolve that, or does he need to prepare for a divorce when he shaves and his wife hates it? I don't know because I haven't tested it yet. My guess is that it will be similar. That it's based on the shape of a human face. So without a beard, because what it's looking for is all that contrast between the movements and everything, and around your face, especially in your lower chin. That stuff can really matter. So my guess is a beard will not be the best still, but until I test it, I don't know. And maybe it won't actually. There's a chance that, I don't know, maybe it'll work better than the true depth version. It's getting real. It's getting real in the chat. Yeah. What are I don't know, what are other things that people would like to see, maybe or any other feedback that you guys have for us? This is basically, we're just here to support you guys, and so we can talk about anything with this time. If anyone wants me to go over anything that we just went through again, I can do that. Nice. Thank you, David. I'm happy you enjoyed it. We're psyched about all this. I think that's great. That's great. William saying this is awesome. I'm happy. I think what we'll kind of do is I'm going to stay until noon. And so I'm just, if any questions come up, I'll answer them. Gloves, says William. Yep. Soon. Very soon. They're awesome. They're going to be so great. I've seen them in action. They work. They're awesome. It will work with your suit. It'll work standalone. Yeah. Anything you recommend for a complete beginner to get started? Sure. So what I would do, Benny is asking, is there anything you would recommend for a complete beginner? What I taught myself, which I think a lot of people in this industry have done. And what I would do is find some quick under 30-minute tutorials where you will get you will be able to get a result from it. I think the most important thing when you're learning is to have an actual, to actually finish something and be proud of something. So, if you have those there's a lot of short tutorials out there that are very simple, and they allow you to create like a very polished product without a lot of work. And basically you can take what you learn in those tutorials and like tweak them slightly and end up with something that is, that you created, and you learn about the whole process in the, you learn about everything in the process. Like one tutorial I would start with is I would look up, like especially in Blender or any program, honestly. One of the first tutorials I did was I looked up a tutorial on how to create a stage. Like how to, thank you, Marcus, but how to, let's look it up. Like Blender stage creating a studio backdrop. I would start with this because, and this is from 2011, so maybe don't start with this one, but like creating a studio is a good way to start, because it means that like when you're rendering the rest of anything else, you can render like a sphere and it will look amazing if your lighting is already set up and everything. So I would start with learning about how to create a studio. And then from there, I would just look up tutorials that are like basic and allow you to actually get a result, that end with you having a render. Because that's what's going to keep you jazzed and like excited to come back. Is like, for me, it was, I have something that I can post or be proud of that is actually finished. It's not just like, you could look up tutorials on the whole animation system for Blender, but you're not going to get an end result from that. And so I like to do tutorials that give me a final product. You know, one thing as well in Blender that I've found is that, and really any program, is that the better lighting is so important in renders. So, you know, even if I just wanted to make this guy look good, like just doing something as simple as in Blender, I would turn the color of the background to black, because this gray is actually emissive. If I go into cycles here, Emre San is saying I'm gonna nice. That's exactly what you want to use mocap for, is spinning to animate a drill tip rotation. Yeah, get you know, that's a good use. But yeah, you know, when I'm doing like simple renders in Blender, or really any program, like a completely black scene with one light above your character can just make things look so cool, because you kind of instantly get that that cool contrast. And I'm actually going to swip in. Oh, I am in EV. I'm going to switch into cycles. But yeah, you just get a cool contrast, and it's so simple just to have a black scene with like one light, and you get a good result. So I don't know, doing simple things and getting a result. Sean is asking, have you all been able to do quadruped characters with the suit? So actually now in the motion library, we have, it's not quite a quadruped, but if we go to motion library, and the Mocap crew is one of our newest publishers. And let's type in Ape. I think it's Ape. Yeah. So this is a group of mocap people who like all have different specialties. And so they've done some Ape animations. They have like a guy who he has like cool, the crutches to like do the running, and it, you know, it makes his arms longer, like an actual gorilla or an ape. So we have these. You can do quadruped characters in the suit. There's absolutely nothing to stop you. I've seen a velociraptor done with the suit really well. And that's obviously a different skeleton and everything, but it's just a matter of matching up the bones, you know, from your character, even if it's an abnormal character, to the corresponding bones that you want to drive them from your suit. So like, there's nothing preventing you from trying to do a horse. And I think you could probably get that working pretty well. You know, I would like connect my, you know, my forearm left to the horse's left, you know, lower leg joint or something, and I would go about it that way. So I haven't done any quadruped characters, but you totally can. Eventually, we will be getting quadruped characters on the motion library, so you'll be able to download like horses and cheetahs and dogs and cats and stuff from the motion library. That's going to be coming soon. Yeah, so you can really animate any sort of character. It just depends on, you know, there's no real limitations. It just depends on how much, you know, how good you are at doing horse acting, I guess, or dog acting. How many suits can be recorded simultaneously? Yeah, the magic is in the bones. With quadrupeds, it's tough because a lot of their bones move the opposite way. So I'm sure that there's a fix there. Emre is asking how many suits can be recorded simultaneously. I don't actually know what the limit is. I know that you can. I don't know, but I've seen personally 5 at once. I think the upper limit might be 8 or 16. I'm not positive. Try to answer that one in the comments of the video or something later, but you can have a bunch of them. You can have, I think the issue there wouldn't be having multiple suits. The issue would be you just have to have really good Wi-Fi set up, because you're doing a lot on that network, and you know, the suit runs on Wi-Fi, and so if you have a lot of stuff, you know, running simultaneously, I don't know. You probably wouldn't want to. I wouldn't even want to do a scene with like 8 people in mocap. It would be too messy. But 2, 3, 4, or 5, you're fine. Tentacles. Yeah, so I do have a recommendation on the Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi will work on 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. I think it's called. We recommend 5, but you have to be closer to your router. So I actually end up using 2.4 more. So 2.4 I think is more reliable. It has more distance, but 5 is actually better if you can be, if you're in a more controlled situation and you can be closer to the router. John Finger, I don't have it right here. Oh, here it is. So this is actually, my other tip would be, and I haven't tested this yet myself, but John Finger, one of our awesome, guys who's worked with us for a while, he uses something called a RAV Power router. And so this is a battery pack and a Wi-Fi router. So what you can do is, again, it's all based on Wi-Fi. So you want your Wi-Fi network to be empty as traffic as possible. And I'm always, on my home network and it's fine. But if I was in an office and I had people watching YouTube and downloading video games or whatever all the time, I wouldn't want to be on that system. And this means that I can connect my computer and my suit to this one, which is also a battery pack, put this in my suit, and then I have a dedicated Wi-Fi network just for my suit and my computer. And so that is something that I'm excited to test out. RAV Power. You can look at John Finger's YouTube for more information on that. I haven't tested it, but I would like it. Recommendation. It's called the RAV Power. I think it's backwards in Zoom, but John Finger is where I got that tip. So I'm excited to use this guy. On the bandwidth specs for Marcus, yeah, again, I end up using the 2.4, but 5 is technically better if you can be close to the router, which I just use 2.4. So that's what I would recommend. What is the approximate data rate to transfer for one suit via Wi-Fi? So, the approximate data, rate of your suit. And am I still plugged in? Where am I? Did I drift somewhere? Hold on. Let me. I'm gonna do another straight pose, and we can see it live. So actually, no, it's not showing, but basically it should be about 100 frames a second is the, I don't know what the bandwidth is or the data transfer, but you're recording at 100 frames a second. Even when you export out 24 frames, the data that you recorded is still recording in 100 frames a second. So I don't know what the data rate is off the top of my head, but you can get 100 frames a second. You should basically be getting that with all your suits, even if you have multiple suits connected. It should be plenty fast, assuming your Wi-Fi is not being completely bogged down by like a massive download or something. And you don't have to have like the best Wi-Fi. It's just the better your Wi-Fi is, the less issues you'll probably run into. I don't have the best Wi-Fi at my house actually, and I probably have, like, my roommates are probably down watching YouTube right now, and it's still working fine. Really, you should have no issues with data rate and stuff like that. And if you are, it's it's probably another issue, and it's not like from the suit. It might be from your environment. It should. Anonymous is saying that every time I do a rest pose, it should be Vader's March. It is very Stormtrooper-ish. Yeah. Marcus is doing some research on the RAV Power router. Yeah, William. I haven't used it, so don't order one based on mine. John Finger is a very talented and smart YouTuber who's been using our suit forever, and he swears by it. So that's why I got one. I just haven't gotten a chance to test it yet. But yeah, he gets fantastic results. And again, it's like I think it's because it's isolated. Even if it's not the best Wi-Fi router, there's nothing else going on that network. It's not connected to the internet. It's not. There's no other computers on your network. It's just your computer and your suit. So that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, the fantastic thing about it is that it's a battery pack too. It's actually an incredible little, it's also an SD reader. This thing is like amazing. I don't know. I've never seen this before, but it's got 2.4 and 5. It's pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know. I still haven't used it, but anyway. Okay. It's 12:08. We're probably going to call it right here, guys. Unless there's some final questions or anything. Last chance. This will be available, on demand. We're recording all this. So, we have tons of Blender tutorials, more coming out soon. I think next week we're going to drop one on how to combine different animations in Blender. I want to run and then I want to stop and talk on a cell phone. There are 2 different animations I want to combine. That's going to be next week. Thank you guys all for coming and everything. And yeah, we're going to do more of these. Hopefully this is worth it, right? Are we down for more? Is it worth it? Oh, we have another question. Okay. Yes, Ben, we're doing it. We're doing it for you. Good. Ben and William. Emery is asking, what would interrupt recording? Low Wi-Fi signal. Yeah, low Wi-Fi signal, lots of data, lots of traffic on your network could be an issue. It's the technology is based off of, magnetic interference can be an issue as well. So again, I've never really ever had it be an issue. The one time I did have it be an issue is we were recording in a on location at a concert venue, and we were recording on the stage, and the stage had a ton of metal and crazy wiring all through it because it was a fancy stage. And so we were having some issues with that, and we just moved off the stage and it was fine. So magnetic interference, but again, it's not an issue I commonly run into, and it's certainly not something that should ever really prevent you from getting good results. If you're having issues, reach out to us and we will work with you to work through them, because there's really no, one of the best parts about the suit is that it is so reliable. And so, yeah, you shouldn't really have any issues with interrupting recording. Webinars for the virtual production add-on. We should. Yeah. Yes. I mean, we want to do webinars on everything. I'm actually not a virtual production guru. We might have Mike Foster, who has done a couple tutorials on that. Is there a plan to resolve body collisions? I think I don't want to say anything about that. Sorry, for first webinars and virtual production. Yeah, maybe in the future. Also, I would go check out all of Cinematography Database on YouTube, the channel Cinematography Database. It's the guy who does Cinetracer, which is an Unreal program, and he is amazing at virtual production, and he is using a Rokoko workflow, and he's the guy for virtual production right now, in my opinion, for Unreal. So I check that out. No, the body collisions, there's not any, we don't have any, there's not a big fix in right now, because it's really a whole other thing. One thing that I might put out soon is that there's some ways that you can get around body collisions in Houdini, even in the Houdini Apprentice version, which is free, which again, I know is oh my God, I don't want to learn a whole nother software. Anonymous, thank you. Thanks for attending. But that's the only, there is no real solution for body collisions that I've seen that are easy. And that's just, I think, the way it is right now. You just kind of got to know your character, and you gotta, I mean, I think the solution to body collisions is that it's so easy to re-record that you just re-record, or you go in and you adjust everything. Like that's another thing I want to put out a tutorial on in Blender, is how to add animation layers to adjust, like if I shove let's try and get a collision that isn't like my hands, or basically, how to adjust your mocap animation in post so that you don't have collisions. But no, there's no real solution. Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, Blender's where it's at for us. So we're going to be putting out a lot of tutorials, because you guys, the Blender community is so much more than Blender. It's Unreal. Everyone in Unreal is using Blender to do this retargeting, or a lot of people are. I'm a Cinema 4D person primarily, and now I use Blender to do all my retargeting. So, Blender's where it's at, and Philip has made this plugin so easy. Okay, again, I said that we were going to go, and I dragged on again, but we're going to sign off. Philip,
yes.
Thank you so much for joining, and
thanks for having me.
Yeah. If capture a walk cycle and treadmill. So I would look up the segments tutorial, Emre, before we leave, and I'll post that in the chat right now. Segments Coco. Yeah, this guy is a really quick tutorial we did on walk cycles. So I wouldn't use treadmill for walk cycles. We have a walk cycle workflow that I would use. Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. This was awesome. We'll see you on the next one, and keep having fun out there. Okay. See you guys.
See ya.